Hello, Corrie Pitzer here from SAFEmap. And in this presentation, I'm going to take a look at what happens beyond zero. Everybody has the vision of zero. What if we reach it? What happens then? Now, what does that look like? The journey towards zero is fraught with hurdles, with curves, with problems. Many organizations are attempting that, and many organizations are failing. Now, why are we failing? Let's have a look at a very important book that had been written about safety called Normal Accidents by Charles Perrow. And what he said was that organizations can be assessed in terms of risk by looking at the structure of the organization, how linear and complex it is. In other words, linear means basic lines of production, complex means a lot of production processes next to each other in close proximity and talking to each other, complex processes. He also said an organization can be loosely coupled or tightly coupled. And coupling basically means that this production processes are so closely knit, so closely subsequently following on each other, that if something goes wrong, there is not enough time to recover easily. It's a very tight process. Now, this gives us four angles on risk. On moderate risk is a loosely coupled and a linear type of organization. Now, this is typical manufacturing processes, retail assembly lines, and so on. When an organization is linear but tightly coupled, that's medium risk. And you get airlines, marine, rail lines, and so on. When it's loosely coupled and complex, that's higher risk. And you now find yourself in the world of construction, refineries, surface mines, mineral processing, so on. The top quadrant is the extreme risk quadrant. And this is where you'll find organizations that are very likely to experience catastrophic events should something go wrong. Underground mining, marine mining, oil rigs, aircraft carriers, space travel, and nuclear. This is extreme risk in an organization. Now, what is likely to happen in the future? My research, and so also research of many other scholars, is that we are probably going to experience a higher degree of coupling in our production processes and a higher degree of complexity because of the advent of a lot of things, technology, digitization, more pressure from society to have small footprint, carbon footprints, etc. And as we go more complex, more coupled in organizations, more and more organizations are going to be caught into the trap of extreme risk. But what I also see is that those organizations at that quadrant are more likely to experience catastrophic events if they fail in certain characteristics. Now, there are some organizations that were on this journey to zero, and some of them were extremely successful. Everybody knows and have heard about DuPont's journey to zero. Everybody knows BP was at one stage a highly regarded, high reliability organization. Union Carbide, or Dow Chemicals today, was a leading chemical organization. Transocean with the Deepwater Horizon, and Occidental Petroleum. They were all on a journey to zero. And as they were approaching zero, near zero, they experienced catastrophic events. All of them, one day extremely safe, the next day metaphorically covered in blood. The most famous story of the lot for me is Piper Alpha. A lot of information available about this disaster. It influenced the safety world tremendously after it happened. But what is notable about Piper Alpha is that 6 months before this event, it won a safety competition, a prestigious one, and they were regarded as the safest oil rig in the North Sea. And yet, on this day, the fire started, and this is what it looked like. Now, most people survived the fire because they were sitting in the accommodation block, which was their go-to evacuation position should an emergency arise. And there they sat, waiting for the helicopters to arrive, to evacuate them. But unfortunately, in that environment, they died from smoke inhalation. And this is what it probably looked like on the inside, tragically, on that day.
That's all we got!
It must have been dreadful to sit there and experience this. Now, the reason this accident happened, there are four basic causes. One was a gas pipeline leaked, ignited, and that started the fire. The fire would have been extinguished by the very advanced water deluge systems they have on these rigs, but that system was shut down because during the day, Piper Alpha had scuba divers in the water, and the manager of the rig was worried that if a fire should start, they could be sucked into the pumps, and he had the system switched off, and it was never switched back on automatic after the shift. Even if the water deluge system came into operation, it would have been ineffective because the spray heads were clogged, rusted, and was not functional. But the most direct cause was the ventilation failures. The ventilation doors were not closed properly, windows were broken, and smoke entered the accommodation block, which was supposed to be a secure environment. And that's where they died from smoke inhalation. 167 men, 26 survived, those who jumped into the sea to escape the fire. In his testimony, the manager of Piper Alpha was confronted by the inquiry, why did you not know of all these failures after this disaster? Why did you not know about them? And his answer was, I thought everything was okay because I never got a report that anything was wrong. Now, these organizations, Piper Alpha and the others I showed, and many others, they all shared a number of key characteristics. One was deficiencies in capabilities. They had the capabilities, they had very well developed processes in the organization, process safety, risk management, etc., but they were deficient. Many of the systems started failing, and a lot of the times the systems were disconnected. The production system didn't talk properly to the risk management system. The risk management system and the process safety system did not link up. They operated in isolation. They gradually drifted into failure. Now, the concept of drifting to failure is describing almost like the metaphorical frog in boiling water who doesn't realize that the water is gradually heating up and then die. Now, this is what gradually happened in these organizations. Gradual degradation of the systems, gradual degradation of the defenses, and failure was imminent. Across the board on all these organizations, people knew about deficiencies. People knew about problems that were occurring, but no one spoke up. You remember the words of the Piper Alpha manager, I never got a report anything was wrong. People were disengaged. And this left this organizations defenseless and unprepared. Now, there is another organization that did not share those failures. That was not defenseless and unprepared, because this organization, remember Captain Sully Sullenberger, was ready to respond to risk. When they lost the engines due to a bird strike, an unprecedented event, they managed the process from then on. They were ready for that risk. And it's their training, their capabilities, their systems that allowed them to do that. Now, they also shared with what exists in De Beers mining as the 4 C's. These are the 4 strategies, focus areas, facets of the diamond of competence, connectedness of systems, the cultivation of capabilities, and the culture of care in the organization towards the vision of De Beers of pioneering brilliant safety. Looking at zero in a distance, when we get there and go beyond that, we're probably going to find ourselves with zero behind us, and we then have to think, what would beyond zero look like? Now, there are a number of key threats that we face beyond zero. The first one is, if our safety performance improve consistently towards zero and then become zero, one of the key problems that we face is the problem of confidence. This is going to tell us that we're successful. And given our reliance on numbers in the business, this is bound to tell management that we have achieved, we stay at zero, and things are going great. That would be false confidence. In the organization beyond zero, we have to develop inherently the well-known concept of chronic unease. But I hardly know of an organization that has truly established this into their systems, into their readiness, into their culture. That's still out there. The other aspect that is facing us is complexity. While we try to look at a simple production process, resources to outputs, and we look outside into the environment, into the business world, we see a great deal of complexity. Just as what is shown by Charles Perrow's model. We need as management, we need as leaders in this new future, we need to focus on clarity. We need to create clarity from this complexity. We need to translate for the organization what is clearly our vision, our goals, our values, our roles. We need to stay true to our business processes, understand our risks, and we need to be clear about the extreme demands that lie ahead of us beyond zero. And that is simply, as captured by this NASA official in the Apollo accident, failure is not an option. Because that's what it would look like beyond zero, where failure is not an option. Well, is there something like that? Is it possible that there's no failure out there? Well, let's look at an image of a mountaineer. This has got nothing to do with safety, with organizational capabilities. This is an individual. His name is Alex Honnold. He is a mountaineer who climbs vertical cliffs with no safety gear, no cables, nothing. And this is what it looks like. It looks crazy, but beware. That is what the environment will look like when we operate where failure is not an option. This is what we need to be. We need to be this capable as an organization, as individuals in the organization, as team members in the organization, to be able to do what he's doing in his profession. We need to do that in our profession. So beyond zero and towards zero, the difference is towards zero, failure is an option. Beyond zero, it is not an option. So what does it look like towards zero? Where we are now, we are catching risks downstream. We have numerous defenses in place, critical controls. We put slams and take fives into position. We tell people to be aware. We depend on the worker to stop unsafe work. That's downstream. We cannot afford that in the beyond zero environment. We have to have operating models that controls the risks upstream. There is no safety net in that environment. There are no ropes to hang on to. In the journey towards zero, human error is reduced. We deal with human error. We limit it. We train people. We design it out of the system. And that's the typical approach towards it. Beyond zero, humans are super performers. There is no room for human error anymore. They have to be like Alex Honnold every step of the way. Technical competence, mountaineering, is the goal towards zero. There's many people climbing mountains, but only few people can climb a mountain without safety gear like he does. And the reason is that he has risk competence. He doesn't jump onto a cliff and start climbing it. He climbed that cliff with ropes many times. He memorized every single move. He plans every move. He looks at every possibility, every step of the way up that cliff. And then he memorizes it. And then he takes the gear off, and then he embarks on it in a very competent way. He understands the risks, and he deals with it every moment in that journey. Now, clearly, we cannot learn from accidents in the beyond zero environment. We can, and we do, in the towards zero environment, but there is no accident. Alex Honnold doesn't want to learn from an accident. He's learning from risks and successes. And that is a very different focus on learning, something we haven't really done yet. Towards zero, we're obsessed with risk exposures. What can kill us? What can hurt us? Beyond zero, we're obsessed now with opportunities because we've dealt with the risks upstream. We've given ourselves amazing super performance capabilities. We now have to look at opportunities. How can we improve? How can we make it even better every step of that way? In the towards zero journey, we reward messages for bad news because bad news are risks and we deal with them, we take them out of the system. Beyond zero, we reward courageous pioneers. We are rewarding risk takers, not the risk takers that just take risks and take shortcuts, but it's risk takers like this who understand the risks and deal with it in competence. Towards zero, teams are given authority. We provide them with resources. We give them the capabilities. We give them the authority to make decisions. Beyond zero, they operate independently. They don't ask for permission anymore. They make decisions every single day where they are. A very important difference is this one. When things go well towards zero, we think it goes well, we're confident, we're happy. When we operate beyond zero and things go well, we worry because we don't trust green lights on the dashboard. We don't run green traffic lights in the beyond zero environment. We make sure that we are doing it safely because there's no second chance. Finally, towards zero, when we get there, we would regard it as zero is safe. Beyond zero, zero is unsafe. It's not yet. It's not there. It's not what we want. We want to be beyond that, and we don't want to see nothing going wrong. We want to understand when things go wrong, and we want to take it out of action before it actually becomes an event. So, connectedness, culture, we have the new direction, clarity, and chronic unease that will sustain us beyond zero. In terms of competence, we have to do that with courage. We have to embody people with power, with decision-making power, so that they can become competent, but also courageous. So they understand the decisions they can make and that they should make at the front end of their business. Cultivation of capabilities must be done all the time, as simple as that. We can never stop cultivating our capabilities, and you'll see my last message why I say that. Towards zero and beyond. Well, is there an organization out there that is doing this? There is, and it is Demarine off the coast of Namibia. They mine diamonds off the seabed in extremely risky circumstances with large ships, vessels that are mining from the seabed, that are processing the diamonds on board. There's got helicopters in and out, people living on these massive vessels. How do they do it? Well, they've installed a system called Safe Sentry. And this Safe Sentry is a very fundamental system that helps them do this. Every day on each vessel, there are a number of employees, 2, 3, maybe 4, appointed for that day as a Safe Sentry. They have access to a tablet that has an app on it. They've all been trained. And what they do is they engage with each other. The Safe Sentry would go out into workplaces, go and talk to other employees, and together they would engage and look at risk in their environment. And they use a simple tool, the 6Y tool. What risks can be overlooked, misjudged? What risks are rewarded? What risks are there that we have to take because of production pressure, balanced? What risks are being tolerated? What risks are inherent in the system? When they do this, they note information on the tablet, they do some analysis, and it's handed back to the supervisor who signs off on this, and it goes into a database from where it's managed. But the most important part of this process is that engagement, where they identify these risks. Now here is just a glimpse of what they've been able to achieve. Since July last year, in this organization, they have identified by now over 2,000 serious injury, fatal, catastrophic risks. 2,000 and more. There were 647 plus fatal, multiple fatal, catastrophic risks identified. This organization, during this time, has shown extreme safety performance. None of these events came close, but they've been identified, they've been targeted, and they've been controlled. And I'm just going to show you 4 of those over 2,000 identifications. Remember the failures of Piper Alpha. Gas pipeline leaked, ignited. Well, this is what had been identified by an employee, a safe sentry on one of the vessels. And you can see here, our power cable was resting on that acetylene pipe and was gradually scraping through from the vibration on the ship. Another few weeks, months, and that would have been cut through and damaged. Acetylene gas would have leaked. A second finding, remember Piper Alpha, the water deluge system was shut down? Well, listen to this finding.
I was conducting a safe sentry within the boilermaker's workshop. A big concern I noticed was that the smoke and heat detectors were actually disabled for the day, which is sometimes acceptable if there's a lot of hot work taking place. And I noticed that the 3 detectors that was disabled on the fire detecting panel was still in disabled mode.
Exactly what happened to Piper Alpha. For a good reason, it's been shut down and then not placed back into action at the end of the shift. The water deluge system at Piper Alpha was ineffective. This is another finding of a safe sentry. This is the water sprays on the vessel, rusted, clogged, will not be effective. And then there was the final reason for the demise of 167 men. They died in the accommodation block. And the reason they died there is because the ventilation doors were not properly closed and smoke entered that accommodation block. Here is a finding of a safe sentry on a Demarine vessel.
This is an excellent observation. All of us in the engine room department has been walking past this vent for years, and we never saw this. You cannot stand high up and try to close something in that position.
And remember, Piper Alpha's manager said, no one gave me a report that anything was wrong. Well, this is the comment of a supervisor since they've deployed safe sentry on these vessels.
When talking regarding safety matters, people seem to be more open since the Safe Sentry initiative started, which is a good thing because now you hear the truth, not what you want to hear.
In essence, what has happened in this organization? That center photo there, Piper Alpha, they've literally identified similar causes and they've literally reversed that situation. In conclusion, a very famous African novelist, Abe Gubegna, said every day in Africa, a gazelle wakes up. It knows it must run faster than the fastest cheetah or it will be killed. Every morning, a cheetah wakes up. It knows it must run faster than the slowest gazelle or it'll starve to death. It doesn't matter whether you're a cheetah or a gazelle. When the sun comes up in Africa, you better be running. This is to me one of the central messages of Beyond Zero safety. If we don't recreate safety every single moment, every single day, we will not be able to prevent failure where it's not an option. We have to start safety from scratch. What we did yesterday, what we did in the past, in this new environment means nothing. When we start the new day, we start from zero, we start from scratch. Think about the cheetah as the risks, the gazelles as us. We have to have that capability to be alert and to be running and to be creating. So when the sun comes up, start running in the business. But there is also another famous African proverb that fits well with our theme. And that is, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And this is what we want to achieve in safety. We don't want to get there fast. We want to go there very far, in depth and beyond. We have to go together. Thank you.